Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Elliot Grigg, which of course means we are in preview mode. Hasn't been a preview video, mate, for a couple of weeks. A quiet enough term when it comes to the big time boxing, but we are back for an absolutely huge fight in the super bantamweight division involving none other than the one, the only Naoya Inoue. Before we get into it, mate, if you are watching this video, please do drop us a like, subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on what we're about to say, your predictions for this fight, and so on and so forth. We do really appreciate it. Well, let's get into it, Elliot. As I mentioned, Naoya Inoue back in action this, I was going to say weekend, but it's a Tuesday, isn't it? Tuesday, 3rd of September, he's fighting TJ Doheny in the Ariake Arena in Kodoku, Tokyo, Japan. Don't really need any introduction more than that. I think both fighters are pretty well known, even Doheny as well, having been in there with pretty good opposition before. What I do want to ask you, mate, is without kind of overlooking, I suppose this question incites that we are maybe overlooking Doheny somewhat. But do you believe that Naoya Inoue will become undisputed champion or even unify after this up at 126 pounds up at featherweight?
Delicious question. Thank you much, Paul. Lovely to see you as always. Lovely to be back here and to be speaking to everyone about boxing, some super fights that we have coming up. I think, you know what? I mean, you look at that featherweight, you look at the champions at featherweight, Espinosa, you look at Bull, Vargas, Leo, Brandon Figueroa kicking around. You look at some of those other names in the division. The man we talked about at great length, Luis Alberto Lopez, obviously Ramirez, those sort of names. Do I think Inoue could clear those names out? Yes. Yes, I do actually. I really do. I think with Inoue, it's a state of he's got the skill, hasn't he? He's obviously got power, and I suppose it's a case of how far up that power will translate, really. And I think the skill's definitely there, but how far that sort of size and power will go. But I think the names that I've mentioned now, I think he could clear out definitely. I think he could definitely unify at featherweight. Not too sure how much further beyond that I would necessarily have him going. I think, you see lads start to really sort of fill out super feather and up. So, but I do genuinely think he's got a chance. Equally, that said, I mean, imagine like Inoue versus Nick Bull sort of fight that would be, I mean, Bull, I'm obviously a very, I know that'd be one for you as well, but like, that'd be one for me. I'd look at that and go, that's just going to be a monster, like, a monster fight. But I think Inoue's got the skill actually to sort of back up his power as well. And that's why I kind of have him edging Nick Bull, even though I think if you look at Bull physically, it's a lot fuller than someone like Inoue as well, but he's obviously quite short as well. So I think the short answer is yes, but I think it would also be quite challenging. I'm not sure he would go beyond possibly featherweight. To be honest with you, I think we need to sort of cap it somewhere. But I think featherweight could be the limit.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. I think it's one of those where we spoke about it before with Vasily Lomachenko, didn't we? There comes a point where your skill set, you're fighting a lot bigger guys, so your skill and the weight kind of equals out, so to speak. Lomachenko kind of found that out when he's gone up to lightweight. Let's be honest, he's not a lightweight. He's still hanging about there. That's why he's had the defeats there. To the likes of Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez as well, fighting, as you mentioned, bigger guys who, skill for skill, you're saying Lomachenko's better than, but maybe, it evens itself out, it levels the playing field, so to speak, with the weight disparity and size and stature, similar to what Inoue. I agree with you, mate. I think he could definitely do it at featherweight, 126 pounds. I'd love to see him in with those names. That would be cracking. I wouldn't, as much as I like Nick Bull and everybody else, I like a few other fighters in that division, I wouldn't be backing against Inoue, to be honest with you. It maybe only would come up at super feather when I would start to maybe doubt who he could beat up there in terms of the champions. Which kind of leads me on, mate, to the next question. Just kind of a follow-up from the first one. We're talking about featherweight. Now, do you believe that this will be Inoue's last fight at super bantam, or can you see him hanging about here for even a little bit longer?
Tough question. You look at the bantamweight division, the super bantamweight division, the guys he's fought, obviously, Neri, Tapales, obviously, he's obviously fought those guys. He's fought Fulton. So for me, I feel like maybe you say, you could have stuck around and fought Akhmadiev if that fight was going on, but then he's obviously lost, hasn't he, recently? So maybe that fight goes away. So in some ways, for me, I think it kind of makes sense to sort of move up after this, to be honest. I really do. But then I also think that you're undisputed champion, essentially. That's going to be hard to give up, essentially, to kind of to sort of fracture those belts and move up. So I think the challenge would also have to be right. So I think there's a kind of business component element to it as well. So for me, I can potentially see this as being his last fight. Though I'd have maybe liked to have seen him fight Akhmadliev as well, probably before moving up. But I think he's got nothing to prove, frankly. If he wants to move up and fight a featherweight, that's absolutely fine. So I would consider that. But it would have to be, I suppose, in a phased way, and whether you want to sort of sacrifice any of those belts. But I'm leaning towards saying it probably is his last fight. To be honest with you, Bantam, I think he will move after this. What about yourself? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, mate. I think in terms of it's let's be honest, who else has he got to fight? If we're being 100% honest, like this fight, it's not like he's fighting, a standout number one contender in the division who's undefeated or whatever. That's not the case. Yeah, Doheny's got good rankings with a couple of the governing bodies, but is he really a top three fighter at Super Bantam? Remains to be seen. A lot of people wouldn't say so. Unless, there's that Sam Goodman one that people were talking about. That, I mean, doesn't do anything for me, but people were talking about that fight. Akhmadaliev is the one, mate. If it's not Akhmadaliev, just move up. That's my general opinion on it. I think I kind of agree with you there. So yeah, I'm hoping that if he is hanging about at 122 pounds, it's Akhmadaliev and nobody else. If not, head up to featherweight, have a world title fight straight away, and then yeah, try and unify and even become undisputed in maybe a third weight division. Time will tell. Mate, it's going to be time for predictions, but I'm kind of going to word it in a different way. I'm going to say that TJ Doheny is 37 years old. And would you tell me your prediction for this fight? But throwing in a caveat question of, I'm assuming you're backing Inoue to win this. So if you are, does he send TJ Doheny straight into retirement?
I was going to sort of start off with a bit of a riff about how I was actually backing TJ Doheny, but I can't even do it with a straight face. I think, I'm going in you a stoppage. I know Doheny's not actually been stopped before, but I think there's time for being stopped will be now. I think, to be honest with you, I could see this being early. I really can. I can see this being even sort of first 3 rounds, frankly, and I can see this being into it. Well, if Doheny doesn't necessarily want to retire, I suppose there's other fights out there for him. Like you said, he's obviously ranked quite highly as well. He's got a ranking position, so maybe he stays for a bit. But I think it could possibly put him into retirement. This is a personal decision that he would have to make. And I just think, for me, this is like if you're a kind of mid-table Premier League football player and you get offered a chance to go to Chelsea or City, like you have to take it, but you're probably not going to play. It's going to probably dent your career somewhat, and that's what's going to happen here to me. It's a bizarre fight, a bizarre kind of mismatch. You look at the record, you look obviously like the loss to Sam Goodman, Conlon. No criticism really against that, but Baluta, Daniel Roman. You look at like losing to Baluta as well. You think he's stepping into Inoue. Like you look at the sort of fights that he's had, even in preparation for this. He's been fighting guys that are kind of 7-0, 11-0. Like this is no way to prepare for the challenge that's coming. And I'm not convinced that Inoue is gonna. He might overlook Doheny, but I think even if he does overlook him, we'll still blast him out of there. But I feel like in a way he's not unprofessional enough that he's just going to go full sort of Andy Ruiz, Ricky Hatton in between camp sort of thing and blow up, and then Doheny can kind of have a chance. I just don't think there's any chance. And I'm going to go first 3 rounds, Paul. And I know that obviously you like to back the Irishman in fights. You've done that previously, but my question to you is: will you be able to find any possible glimmer here of backing TJ Doheny, or do you think it's going to be a similar sort of poleaxing conclusion for him here?
Of course I can, mate. 3-fight winning knockout streak, all in Japan as the underdog. No, despite that being the case, that is actually true. He's won his last 3 fights all in Japan. As the away fighter, so to speak. But no, let's be honest, he's not going to do it against. He's not going to do it against Naoya Inoue. I agree with you. First 3 rounds, I'll even go first 2. Wouldn't surprise me if it was 1 round. Hasn't been stopped before, obviously, with those losses to Danny Roman, Inoue Baluta, Mick Conlon, and Sam Goodman. But he's been on the deck a couple of times from body shots and stuff. And at 37, I think his time probably has come that he will get stopped by the absolute monster that is Naoya Inoue. So yeah, I see it in a really early night for Inoue, and then moving on to maybe whether will he fight before the end of the year. I hope so. If not, a big 2025 potentially at featherweight for Naoya Inoue. Guys, that's all we have time for. Let us know your thoughts on the fight. Will this be a quick night's work for Naoya Inoue? Does he go up to 126 pounds and win world titles there in a 5th weight division? Is this the end for TJ Doheny potentially? Or are you backing the Irishman to win? Let us know your thoughts. And as always, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, drop us a comment, let us know your thoughts. Elliot, thanks very much for joining me, mate. Speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching.